I don't think it happened, but yeah, that too.
I had to give her a lot. My ID, hook up the bag and make her kind of stay in one place while I gave her.
Can,
100 milliliters of fluids. I had to give this poor animal 100 milliliters every day.
That's
We've done a lot.
that is when someone says, well, are you taking good care? He's like, well, not quite Liz Kelly.
No, that is a new gold standard. I think Medicare and Medicaid are gonna model.
Oh, okay.
We'll never reach it. We'll never reach it.
can we call the meeting of the Personnel Committee to order? Mr. McGee is en route. He's tied up at work, so I'm going to chair the meeting on his behalf. If I could find the agenda, which I believe we asked for courtesy of the floor first. Seeing none, review of temporary personnel request, Department of Administration elections.
I am personnel.
Okay. Amy, do you want to come talk about this, please? I think there's some question.
So you approved the budget, the money that I needed for the office. And then when we went to hire staff, we realized that there is a personnel cap on the amount of people that I am allowed to have there.
Hold on a minute.
I'm sorry.
So I just need that cap lifted so that I can get more temps in for the next 2 months.
Okay, thank you. Good, Mr. Hackman, go ahead.
No, all right, so this, yeah, you need extra help because we don't know what's gonna happen in November and all of that. I saw the resolution, and the only thing I'm fine with it, number one. Number two, though, I think because it's just open-ended and it stops, I think we should be amended to be in effect until
End of the year at the,
12/31/20, at which time county council will review and renew if
Yeah.
necessary.
That's a function of how fiscal puts the numbers to this. These people will not be here quite that long either. They will be, this group of folks will be here probably until the week or so after Election Day. That, it's just, this is the way a position control is done, and it gives you what the yearly salary is, but it's a temporary position, so it's not a yearly position, so.
So it wouldn't matter if we put.
Yeah, no, not at all.
If I may, by rights, under our career service regulations, all temporary positions
Yes.
cannot last longer
6
than
months.
6 months.
Yeah, that's right.
So they are 6-month positions.
She's gotta come up. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, yeah, I'm fine. I just thought we could put
I
it in.
apologize.
That's all right.
The temporary positions can last no longer than 6 months. There may be a rare exception, but that would require the approval of all kinds of authority.
I'm not suggesting you would. Mr. Dirty has experience with this. Sometimes when you've been on council, there have been temporary positions.
Yeah,
3 years
no.
down the road, we found out somebody-
We can't allow that.
Well, I
Yeah.
do, and that's why I just thought we'll put a button on the bottom of this. But I mean, I have no problem with getting people. I understand you have to budget for it. So we want the election, believe me, I'm 100% behind having this election.
No, because if these were not temporary positions and they go beyond the 6 months, they'd still have to come back to you, because if you notice, we're not calculating anything in for benefits here. And if a person works full-time for, about 6 months, they're gonna be due some benefits.
That's my question, because it's 10 clerical technician twos, but it doesn't say FTE or part-time or per diem, it just says temporary. So are they expected to be FTE?
One of the problems and one of the challenges that Ms. Cozy has dealt with is we can't find necessarily people who will work full-time. So some of our temps are working 3 days a week, some of them are working 5 days, some of them working 2. So as these temps are doing the different jobs that we're assigning to them, that was the necessity to expand out the position control so that we would have enough people to fill in the amount of time that we need to work. So this is just providing enough positions so that we would be able to get the challenges met.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Cusick.
just real quickly, I mean, I have no problem. Certainly, this is a core function of county government. Like Mr. Heckman, I too would feel comfortable if we put a drop dead date at the end of the year.
Yeah, and
No, I didn't think.
without objection, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's a matter of writing it correctly and understandably, because again, it doesn't say that, but I hear what you're saying. You just need 10, at least 10 positions to that amount of money for a temporary period of time to
Well,
cover
no,
this.
not that amount of money, that's just the way it comes out as a.
That's the maximum amount?
They budget as if it's an annual salary, and that seems to just be an established practice, but most
I
of
know,
them,
Steve.
none of them are gonna work more than 6 months.
In the way we have to manage the positions, and in the position control, the only way we can delineate the temporary positions out, because it's not a part-time position, is to make them one FTE. We fund to the level that we need for that FTE, and all the temps in the election office are funded the exact same way. And since we need, so say for example, I don't know how many are on the report today, but if we're gonna bring in 10 bodies, we need the 10 FTE positions. We can't add people that don't exist, and we funded them with the money, but we didn't create the positions, and only council under the Home Rule Charter can create the positions. So we're basically just asking council to create the positions they already funded.
Do we have the 10 people already, or you,
I
no?
don't believe so. That I not privy to.
You haven't filled the requirements yet, or are you still looking?
I didn't want to promise anybody a job until I knew it was available. So, no.
Can you
there-
say more about what your vision is, or what,
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
can you speak more to when, how you'd like to start using them and?
That was my next question.
Well, we're ideally going to have ballots going out in the next week or so, and once that begins, then our operation becomes constant, and we'll be having the extended hours now, so we need to have the office manned until 8 PM. There has to be at least 2 people in the office. We just have a lot more hours to cover.
Yes, Mr.
Do-
Myers?
Do we need more than, do we have people lined up, or are you still looking for more help?
I will be looking for more temporary
That's what I'm talking
employees. I have individuals in mind, but I haven't extended anything until I knew I had that option.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Amy, as you are now, and looking into November, so, did you fill the position yet, the full-time?
Yes.
Okay, and then you're gonna look for people for this.
Mm-hmm.
You, trying to use a crystal ball, we all are. Do you feel then that you're gonna be in at least the best position you can imagine right now for November? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, 10 people will greatly help. Hopefully, they can work more than 2 days a week. But, I mean, really, that's all we have the capacity for
Sure.
anyway.
And I was reading the latest from the governor about this. I mean, it's frustrating, I'm sure it's frustrating for you, because I have no idea if what he's proposing, what he's saying is gonna happen, what the legislature is gonna make happen. So as of right now, if you don't mind, what exactly, when do the mail-in voter things go out? Mail-in? Mail-in.
As soon as the Supreme Court makes a ruling on the Green Party candidates.
Right.
Oh,
That's
that's
the
right. Yeah,
holdup.
that's another wrinkle, I forgot.
Yeah.
And then the box is gonna be put in the rotunda, the drop-in box.
Ideally,
Ideally, all right. But as of now, the drop dead date for getting them in is still 8 PM the day of the election.
Yes.
Even though there's been
Yeah.
Suggestion.
That, nothing has
I could
been
keep these,
changed
right?
about the deadline, no.
Thank you.
Would it be safe to say, and you can say, don't know, and I'm not going to be bothered, believe me. Is it safe to say that probably, given what's going to happen with mail-ins, because you told us you expect a lot, and I'm sure we will get a lot, that it could be a day or two after the election before we have an actual count?
It's going to depend on when we can start canvassing. I mean,
Right now, when can you start canvassing?
7 AM on election day.
7 AM on election day. Oh, okay, all right, and then that, I wanted to know, because I've been reading these memos that come from the state, we're gonna do this, we think we should do that, and I'm like, okay, what exactly are we doing, since we're responsible at the county level? So you help
As
fill in
soon
the
as I
blanks.
know, you will know, I promise.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks, Amy, that's all I had.
And can I just ask you one more question? Oh, did you have, go ahead, Mr. Giovanni.
Amy, how many mail-in?
As of, when I just left, we were at about 59,000.
And, each time Amy says this, I cringe a little bit, because that's 59,000 times 2 envelopes each when they come back. So 118,000 envelopes that have to be opened, de-enveloped, and handled, and then flattened out. So that's a significantly larger number when you look at the task that Amy's office will be facing, not just 59,000.
Do we have enough?
Have enough envelopes? We have enough envelopes. It's the one thing I'm confident about right now. We've
The
got,
only thing. We
got a lot
have
of
the
envelopes.
envelopes.
yes.
Are there, is there any other personnel, like are your poll workers set? Is everything set? Because again, the next time you could come to us is really getting very close. So I just want to make sure that
We have hundreds of backup poll workers. We're good with poll workers. I mean, really, we're set to follow the game plan that we had in the primary, with little tweaks here and there. But, what we did in the primary worked. We're following the same model. We just have to wait and see if the rules of the game are going to change on us at some point.
We're going to have the personnel from the voting machine and the book available?
Yep, we're going to have the same level of support that we had in the primary.
Mr. Lott?
Yes, 2 questions. One, you were put on a state committee. How did that go? Did that bring value to, I know the idea was you bring value to them, but did we get stuff, ideas back from that?
It's my understanding that we'll be advising the legislature on election reform moving forward. I haven't received any further information from the boards and committees at the state level yet. So again, as I learn more information about my role on that board, I'm happy to share that with you.
That's good, because you did create a reputation. I know I got a call, I emailed you about one of our neighbors, the commissioner, they're struggling a little bit, and they wanted to know how you pulled it off, so,
I did speak to Rocky.
Thank you very much. The other thing is, without doing the math, the 30,000 is a year wage. What do we, I don't need exact number, but where does that come in on wages?
We
Hourly or-
pay $14.80 something an hour, I
About
believe.
$15 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And is there, I guess the only other question I have is, and I know it's personnel, but is there any other money that's being stated that it may come from the state to support us in any way with anything, or no? Like, I know
From
we're
this-
waiting to hear back from the machines and repayment on the machines, but is there any other?
From state-specific money, I have not heard of anything additional.
Anything through the CARES Act that support the election?
I haven't heard of anything additional than has already been proposed.
Okay. So like I guess you said, if when you know, we'll know. So, Mr. Heckman, you're gonna amend this before, we can,
Well, I mean, we could do that tomorrow night. I mean, I'll move it forward. I'm just gonna amend the charter, the resolution to say, to be in effect
We-
until 12/31/20, which time county council will review and renew if necessary.
And just for the record, I don't foresee needing any of these extra temps beyond, like Charles said, a week or two after the election.
And please, it says zero to do with you or what you have to do. It's just housekeeping. I get a little anal about it.
okay, we'll stop that conversation right there, and we have a motion to move that forward.
So
We all have our thing.
is this being changed now?
No, he'll move it to, for tomorrow night, it'll be amended. For tomorrow night, when we vote on it, the wording will be changed.
Okay.
If I may, Madam Chairman,
Sure.
Tara Zirinsky just texted me and said she was on Skype trying to get in. So I think,
Can we move, let Amy sit down? We don't need her anymore?
I don't have any questions for her.
we're on the phone.
Thanks, Amy.
Oh, wait, did she have questions specific
I
to
don't
this?
know. You want to pull?
Pardon me?
I don't know what she wants, which is good.
Okay, now anyone who tries to join will be allowed into the meeting. To undo this, block the meeting. Sarah? Are you there, Sarah? Okay, hold on. Okay, she's on.
Is she on? Tara? Tara? All right, we're doing personnel right now. We talked about the election temp employees. Why am I doing this? Lori's in charge.
Because you're sitting right there and she could, because,
You want to ask if she has any questions?
do you have any questions regarding the Personnel Committee, Tara? I can't hear her.
We're discussing the temporary employees that they need for the election, the resolution. Yep. Good, thank you.
Okay, so then we moving it tomorrow with the changes as suggested? Can we adjourn the meeting? Are there any other matters for Personnel Committee at this time? Thank you, Amy. Thank you for all your work, and everybody else there too.
Good luck.
And with that, we can move into the Finance Committee. Courtesy of the floor?
Steve Barron, Director of Fiscal Affairs, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Today, I wanted to take a moment at courtesy of the floor to speak to your agenda item where a discussion of the IT contract will take place. I felt some salient factors on the history of Vision's service to the county were relevant to preface that discussion. In 2018, Vision was selected via an RFP process to become the county's IT provider after a stale relationship with several companies that managed our IT services, where mergers and acquisitions left our local staff in Northampton County on an island, often with little or no support from the vendor who actually bid for that contract, was selected. The prior vendor demanded that our local staff sign a no-compete document, which may have prevented them from working for our new vendor, Vision. The county executive took swift action to end the previous IT contract early and bring on Vision 4 months earlier than they anticipated. Vision stepped up, onboarded all our staff locally, and made it for as smooth a transition as possible. Since that time, Vision has been a valuable partner to Northampton County. Even through the most recent pandemic, the county has not missed a paycheck, payment to vendor, a support call, or experienced significant downtime. They have kept our network secure from hackers, and when the world rushed to Zoom meetings, we resisted and moved to more secure solutions like Skype for Business and avoided hackers to gaining access to our meetings or perpetrating lewd acts during our broadcasted public meetings, as we have all seen online very recently. Vision has provided technology to our nursing homes so visits can be had virtually. They have continued to finish projects and get work done while our buildings were empty so that when we could come back safely, we were able to do so with little interruption. And they built servers that allowed for the ability for continuous operations and keep Northampton County running even if remotely, even if necessary by remote. They have deployed this year 223 workstations with an additional 44 mobile devices, not to mention all the server upgrades, maintenance, and penetration testing. During the testing, no accounts could be compromised, and our information and data is safe. Allentown had a ransomware attack. Global Tellink just very recently just announced had a huge data breach. They are one of our vendors. They do the telephones at the jail. Magellan, who runs our Health Choices program, was also breached. Vision has worked very hard to make sure our data that may have touch points with those vendors has not been compromised, and they have been an excellent partner in that process. Vision staff have been patient with our workforce and work hard to provide the best solutions within the technical skills of the staff members using the technology. So today, Bob Mace, the director, is here, as well as Mark Alexander from Vision, and will answer the Finance Committee's questions when that time comes as best as they can. But I felt that the history of Vision's relationship with the county, as well as an explanation of why the McClure administration is pleased with the services Vision provides to the county, helps give the complete picture of IT services in Northampton County. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask you a question?
During courtesy of the floor?
Yeah.
Okay.
2018, we signed the contract, just to refresh my memory. How long is that contract?
So they got 4 months. They had 4 months. They had 4 months prior. We signed the contract for starting 2019. We did an amendment to the contract to bring them on earlier at the 2019 rate, and that contract, I believe, is for 5 years.
Okay, and how much for the total contract?
I don't recall the total number. It goes up. There's an escalator in it every year, and there are additions, there are extensions allowed at the discretion of the county executive.
And it has, like all contracts, it has the opt-out clause.
After 30 days, yes.
Okay, that's all. I was just curious. I couldn't remember the terms of the original contract. Thank you.
Okay. Any other courtesy of the floor? Okay. Review of the controllers' reports.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You did receive via email the controller's reports for hotel room rental tax for the Hyatt Palace in Bethlehem. You did receive the hotel room rental tax for Courtyard Marriott. You did receive the hotel room rental tax for the Holiday Inn Express LVIA. You did receive the hotel room rental tax, the Comfort Suites University. You did receive the hotel room rental tax, the Holiday Inn Express in Palmer. Internal control review, cash collections, farmland reservations. And last is the follow-up report, recorder of deeds agency fund performance audit. We did perform the audit, as I said, on the Hyatt Palace Bethlehem. We have, they owe us $2,268.32. For the Courtyard Marriott, they owe us $1,501.56. For the Holiday Inn Express, the LVIA, they also owe the county $138.67. For the Comfort Suites University, they owe the county $590.81. And for the Holiday Inn Express Palmer, they owe the county $893.50. Fiscal affairs are being very helpful, that notifying the controller's office once the funds are received regarding these audits. Any questions on the hotels?
How much time do they have before they have to? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
How much time are you giving them to pay these?
I'm sorry?
How much time do they get to pay these?
Oh, I don't know, maybe Steve will tell us.
So since this is money they collect and they should have in their possession already, they need to remit as soon as possible. There's not really a time frame. Penalties and interest do continue to accrue on the money at that time period, so the faster they get it in, the better. Once people are alerted to it, it varies by hotel. If they're locally owned and operated, it usually comes in quicker. If they have to go to a parent organization that's like a conglomerate of hotels, it takes a little longer. I would say the average is about 30 days.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Lori.
Go ahead, John.
No, no problem. Just a quick note, the Hyatt one particularly stands out. It's what, $2,200. Is there something systemically incorrect about what they're doing there with their collection? I see most of it is just, they're giving exemptions that are not called for. Is that?
I think it was mostly maybe the exemptions, because we looked at all 35 exemptions taken by the hotel and found the hotel only provided guests for testing the validity of exemptions. 9 exemptions were disallowed because we were unable to find any information. So that maybe the dollar amount made that high.
Yeah, that, like I said, that's a big number. I sense that there needs to be some education as to what's proper and what's not down there.
Oh, okay. Also, thank you, Mr. Barron. The hotel underreported taxable room revenue in all 24 months. So the operator failed to include revenue from no-show charges and pet fees totaling $33,481 during 2017 and 18.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's a huge difference, huh? What would be considered an exemption? Do we know? Does that even matter?
Yeah, it would be
Exempt
like if
somebody
you're
from
on the
tax.
military or government, some certain nonprofits have exemptions from the tax.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the hotels themselves and the money owed? Should we move on to the cash collection process?
For the cash collection process, farmland preservation, the procedures were to review the cash collection work assignments to determine if the proper cash flow duties is in place. So the most important thing is in our findings, and you have this too on hand, is we clarified with the Farmland Preservation's administrator that the responsible individual may provide evidence of review even if he is not present on the day of deposit. The administrator indicated that they will do this in the future. And the other finding is the 5 receipts selected to testing were comprised of 2 appraisals and 3 easements.
Any questions on that?
And also the Farmland Preservation's division does not maintain any bank accounts.
No, seeing no questions, move on to the last one.
The last one is only a follow-up, and we still, we realize that the urgency of completing the manuals, therefore, I'm committing time after hours, that's why we got the correction actions, but as auditors comment, we will perform follow-up in 6 months to review the status of this item. So we need the update again, is for the record of deeds. I don't know if you have any comment, Mr. Barron.
No, they're working on it. There were a few state law changes with the way things were collected, so those need to be reflected, and I know Andrea is working hard to get those all together for the update. She's actually one of the better ones. She tends to update her records every other year. She's only been in the role of recorder for about 6 years, and the policies and procedures were updated when longtime recorder Ann Achatz left, and passed everything over to Ms. Suter.
It's obviously not on a computer that she could access, or is it not, it's not something that, because it's old?
No, it's all on the computers. It's been updated. I just said they updated it every 2 years.
All right.
But there's some new law things that she's working on, and they haven't gone to conference yet this year.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No? Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Review of donation of masks to the Department of Corrections. Apparently it's a gift. Nobody's here to talk about it.
Self-explanatory.
Okay, can we move it forward to tomorrow?
Motion to move it forward.
Thank you. Discussion regarding input, now, hold on a minute, let me see where we are today. Do we want to do that discussion now, or do we want to take care of some of the smaller items? Want to take care of some of these smaller items first? Okay, the COVID-related expenses. Because some of these we've already reviewed, and we may just have a few questions.
I can speak to any COVID-related matter on your agenda.
Okay, well, it says review of COVID-related expenses, reimbursement to the general fund from CARES Act funding.
Okay, so this resolution, council, is asking for $2.5 million for CARES Act money. $621,485.10 of that money is actually to reimburse the non-Graysdale funds for the hazardous duty pay that we paid. That is an allowable expense under COVID-19 that is not covered under the CARES Act, that is not covered by anything else. Graysdale is being reimbursed from a different source of funding. Therefore, we can't obviously double dip. So the second matter is the $1,878,514.90. That is IT-related expenses. Those IT-related expenses went to support remote work, teleconferencing options, some of which we were going to buy in 2021. But since we must use the CARES Act money in 2020, we are going to be buying some of those 2021 solutions right away so that we can use them. God forbid the late fall and early winter are as bad, if not worse. We have all those items together, ready to go to document for reimbursement, and we'd like a resolution to move that into our general fund.
Go ahead, Carrie.
What exactly are you talking about non-Graysdale items for $621,000?
That's the hazardous pay for the folks that may have worked. So human service workers who may have worked at Graysdale, they're not reimbursed by Graysdale. They still reside in the general fund. There were also people in human resources. There were folks at the jail that were paid hazardous duty pay, folks at the Juvenile Justice Center. That's all the hazardous duty pay that they were paid over that time period. A lion's share, obviously, as you could see, was at Graysdale, but this is the remainder that isn't being reimbursed from any other source.
Is any of that money coming out for anything that we have to pay to the courts?
The Juvenile Justice Center, it resides with the courts. So since we actually pay them from the salary line items, it all goes back. It's all a general fund. So while it goes to the courts, it's all general fund money. And it was money that was not initially in their budget, so it will go to make them whole, so we can make salaries the remainder of the year, most likely.
Well, before we close this out, just one question, I'm done. Sorry, my phone's going off. Are we expecting any other money to come out for overtime for this hazard pay? Or is it the last, this is it?
So I don't know what the future holds, unfortunately. But for right now, this is all of our expenses for hazard pay because the hazardous duty pay has ended. This is everything we know of right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can this all be in one resolution? The information technology, the pay, I mean, does
Yes.
that have to be broken out?
No, I broke it out so that council could see it in the resolution. It was a total of $2.5 million. The IT stuff is actually, some of the costs in there are for estimates. We will have enough to cover this full $1.8 million that's proposed. But it's all money that is going to the county. And under the CARES Act, we are entitled to take money back for ourselves that we had expended out. We took great pains to make sure it wasn't going to be double dipped in any way. And IT expenses were that was the one thing we really didn't get reimbursement for from FEMA, PEMA, anything else. So
How much is it for IT again?
it's 1.8 million. Now that is not support services. That is just equipment we've bought. So I'm talking servers, notebook computers. The contract with Vision is the contract. This is just for items. We're also purchasing a Clarity solution, which will help us integrate amongst folks who are insistent on using Zoom. It gives us a more secure option for some of those meeting features so that, again, we don't have people breaking into our meetings.
Since we're reimbursing ourselves for spending it on that, this hardware, that belongs to the county.
Yeah, it's all ours.
Keep it no matter what.
Yep, we own it all.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Motion to move it forward for tomorrow.
Okay.
Now, the other items on your agenda, the Small Business Development Center, Ben Franklin, and the Community College. You've heard from all those groups before. Ms. Smith, along with all the people, the recipients, will be here tomorrow if you have any other additional detailed questions. But for the CARES Act funding, again, these are all allowable expenses. When council either disposes of the resolution, we will make sure that we account for it accordingly.
Did anybody have any questions that they?
Just one, just broadly, will there be another round of municipal grants coming forward?
The answer to that question is I don't know. So we don't, I know there were some applications that went in. I don't know where those stand right now. I know that there has been discussion about expenses that are allowed and not allowed. And so we're trying to make sure that since this money is subject to clawback, we are trying to make sure that everything we fund for a municipality does not put them in a position where the feds or the state can come in and say, we need this money back because you did not spend it appropriately. So we're trying to help guide them through that process because the language is very, very new. So we're being very, very measured before we actually, bring those forward to you and grant them and stuff like that. So we're trying to help and make sure that these programs have the best deal of success. And if one thing they have might not be okay, well, hey, did you think about maybe reimbursing yourself for this? So we're working with the municipalities very closely.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of municipalities that didn't submit the last or the first round because they weren't really sure as to what was reimbursable and what was not. And, I would hate to see them miss out on
No,
this
I know, and
funding that's
DCED has been
available.
working with them very, very rigorously. So I don't know where that stands today, so I don't want to say yes or no, because I don't know, I really
Yeah,
don't know.
but there is still money available. That's really what I'm
yes,
asking.
yes.
Okay, all right.
We haven't spent it all yet.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Well, if all this passes that is in front of you today, or for tomorrow, it will probably be somewhere between $2 million and $3 million. Now, that's not to say that the money isn't programmed or there's other things in the works right now that are kind of germinating, but that is what is out there.
Question.
All right, Mr. Heckman, then Mr. Locke, go ahead.
Well, thank you, because that was, so we have $2 to $3 million of that 27 million pot unspent. And you said that, so 2 to 3, and you're germinating ideas right now.
There's a lot of different ideas floating around, so I don't.
I'm sure there are. Okay, so, earlier, we moved on with some IT equipment that we bought,
Yes.
because you said that's allowable. We can
Uh-huh.
pay ourselves back. Could we use some of that if we had decided and came up with something that we wanted to do with IT as far as county council's concerned? That would be an allowable expense?
I'd have to hear the idea before I said yes or no.
Okay.
Because I don't know, because as I hear the pitches for the ideas, I go back to the rules. And I look to see like does it fit one of the criteria, and see ultimately, DCED and myself are gonna have to sit in front of a state auditor
Right.
who might say, hey, why did you spend this money in this way? And I have to have a logical explanation for it. So we need to make sure that we can defend it.
Yeah.
So,
It seems though like they have some variance, because, I mean, we did a sewage pump, we did a fire engine, as was discussed. I mean,
Well-
we've spent it on a lot of different
So-
things. Now, I'm not saying they're
No, I
bad.
know.
I mean, you
No.
wouldn't suggest it if you didn't think it would be you in front of your board being able to defend it. So it seems like there's a fair amount of leeway.
well, there is, but again, it's also like for a fire truck, I can defend that. It's the first responder in the city of Bethlehem, and it's gonna be the people who come to evacuate people from the nursing home.
Okay.
So I can defend that, and there are lots of nursing homes in Bethlehem.
So if we wanted to do something that made sure we complied with the law, if we have another lockdown this winter, which we very well could, with a secondary outbreak, to be sure that we comply with the law, and we have to go virtual meetings, and to ensure, though, that we comply with the law for people being able to interact with us in the public without being in here. I mean, if we needed to buy equipment to do that effectively, that should qualify.
It's actually what you would be approving this evening. There's a solution in there called the Clarity Solution, which will allow you to do that. On top of it, we are in the process of purchasing, not to sort of take the thunder from the other part of the meeting, but we're in the process of purchasing a mobile studio that we were speccing out to the size of courtroom 1, so that right now, the way you broadcast your meetings is we break everything down a floor below in the IT service desk area. We take that and we reassemble it, adding cameras we have laying around from various areas to broadcast to courtroom 1. Initially, when we wired this room here, there was a proposal to wire courtroom 1 because it was the ceremonial courtroom, and they did a lot of things in there like immigration and naturalization ceremonies. The courts did not want that room active for sound where we could literally just switch it over. So now that technology has advanced beyond that, because you're already on your second generation of cameras, that's already included in here, Mr. Heckman. A solution is already in here. It's approximately $120,000. We haven't purchased it yet because it will require council approval. But we had been shopping it around to see what the best solution is. So we will be bringing that to you soon. So we're already steps ahead in that regard.
So back to this layer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that, I didn't mean to go off.
No, I don't think you did, but is there anything else regarding
No,
these?
no.
I think Mr. Lot was next.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there was two things. Municipality grants. You said not all our communities applied for them, but when I asked 2 weeks ago, the head of economic development told me that every municipality was reached out to aggressively and encouraged to do it. It's a shame some of them didn't do it, because all of them must have some cost. I don't quite understand why
And I don't know
municipalities wouldn't do that, and, so that's shocking to me, but kind of on Ron's statement, so I would like to see the municipalities that didn't get help get some help, but we cannot force them to get help. So I don't know what the answer is there. If they truly were reached out, which I believe they were, I don't know where we go there. On Ron's statement, I think we, as council, would just have to do the same thing to municipalities, show cause. So, I mean, screens, anything we need for the CARES, to protect herself from COVID, I would imagine is covered. I mean, if Mr. Barron can justify a pump down in Easton that it's COVID, I think anything we need to run our meetings in this time would be covered. Just my own personal opinion. Thank you.
I did speak to somebody from another municipality who did not submit, and they might have been asked, but I don't think they understand, some people, what they can do. And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but that maybe they need to be told. And not every municipality functions as effectively as others, and so they might need some support, but. Can we get back to this? I've got to tell you two things. One, the only one that I had a problem with was the community college one, because I felt like their presentation wasn't exactly clear. It sounds like they're building it with the money, as opposed to like the Small Business Development Center had a very clear mission and purpose. Ben Franklin had a clear mission and purpose. So I needed I guess I had some more questions on the community college.
they'll be
They're
here
not
tomorrow night.
I don't know if anybody else felt that way, or maybe it's just me, but that's it. So other than that, I have no problem moving them forward. I had some, again, I don't understand, they kept saying, we're gonna make it, we're gonna do it, so it doesn't exist yet. And I think that makes me feel less comfortable with it. I'm a one-person vote, so it doesn't matter. Can I just double back also to the related expenses from the care? Would you be so kind to break out some of those expenses for tomorrow night's meeting? I think that would be helpful.
Which one is that, the IT ones?
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously, if you have the categories of where some of the money was spent for personnel, that might be helpful for people to see and clarify
You
it.
want
And the IT, if you
yeah.
could just break them out a little bit.
I have every dollar, just so you're aware, I have every dollar of the money spent for the hazard pay. I have approximately in invoices 1.3 or 1.4 million dollars for IT. I know there's 1.8 in there, but there are other solutions that we're going to be bringing forward.
So, but again, if you could just say proposed, I think that would be super helpful for tomorrow. That's
Will
just
do.
my request. Anybody? You could disagree. That's what I'd like to see.
You're the wizard of CARES money, so, if the fire, like you said, the fire truck is because it's an emergency and it's not, but to get to the fire, they need to cross a bridge. Would we be able to do the Meadows Bridge?
Oh, my
I don't know,
God,
it's a
my
logical
Father in
extension.
heaven.
No.
Oh, it's a logical,
I'm breaking out the rosaries on that, I swear
well,
to God.
no, one of the, there's two bridges. There's two bridges out there. The one that's least controversial, I mean, I would,
That's the most controversial bridge.
all right. No, I was just, I mean, really, when you think about it, I know it's a joke, it sounds like a joke, but, I mean, it follows, I've got a fire truck, I need to get to a fire, but there's no bridge for me to get to the fire. So I just a thought,
I'll put my rosaries down.
They got to respond to COVID incident. It's a first responder, so you wouldn't be responding to a fire for a bridge, you'd be responding to a COVID case. I'm just making light of it.
with a fire truck.
The argument is that the fire truck is the first responder.
Oh, wow.
It's not justified, so you can't say they're going to a COVID case.
There is a senior center on that side of town.
Didn't mean
That
to.
needs to go over that bridge. Thank you very much.
All right.
I think,
never
are we
mind.
good on this and
Yeah, we're
moving
good.
all forward? Thank you. Review of Article 13 Contract BSI Corporate Benefits. Who is this and what is this? We turned it.
Contract is for a health and welfare benefits advisor to the county. This is the organization that helps negotiate our contracts with such people as Capital Blue Cross or whoever else may be in a good position to provide benefits at a very competitive price to the county, as well as dental and vision benefits. And we have some voluntary benefits. People can buy up more life insurance than we currently provide if they choose to. And they can buy disability benefits that we don't currently provide if they choose to. We also have Teledoc, which has been tremendously successful, and we've recently upgraded that to Healthiest You. And telemedicine was something that our current advisor, BSI, put us on to. We put out an RFP, as we're required to do under Article 13, and we got 4 proposals. We listened to presentations from all of the presenters. One presenter in particular provided a lot of good information. I mean, I'll be honest, I went into this thinking, well, I was probably going to be inclined to go with BSI, but this other presenter really gave us something to think about. However, in the end, we have decided that BSI has served us well and we would like to continue with them. Sean Hughes from BSI is here tonight. He's the man in the green mask. And near my deputy, Kathleen Wedge, who was also very intimately involved in the RFP process. Kathleen, myself, Mr. Barron, and Mr. Derdinger were all involved. BSI has saved us a lot of money on benefits. BSI has really good knowledge of the insurance industry that none of us possess. That has made it very helpful to understand benefits for all of us who must understand them, and also to negotiate good prices for them. They understand about rebates, they understand about how the companies charge for these things, and they understand an awful lot about how employees use benefits as well. And all of that has been very valuable to us, and we hope to continue that relationship. And that's what we're bringing to you tonight, a 3-year contract. They have agreed not to raise their price, which was also a huge factor in our decision. So we expect that not only will they not raise their price, but they will continue to save us money on benefits. Sean's here, and I would like to invite him up to the podium so that if you have any questions, he would be able to answer them.
I have one question for you. Before
Okay.
He can come up, but, so what made you decide not to go with the other company if they gave you a lot to think about?
Well, much of what they were proposing were savings that would require changes that we thought might be a little hard for employees to accept.
Okay.
And it's always been, really one of our major goals to have employee benefits that employees feel are valuable, and feel they are not being asked to pay too much for, and getting good value from. So I think that was a big part of it. In addition, some of the other things that they could bring to the table could be purchased separately. And we are looking into making a separate purchase for them, which we would eventually bring to you, so I don't know that we need to talk about it tonight.
Okay.
But good question, thank you. Anything else for me, or would you?
You,
Oh,
if you don't
me,
mind.
okay, sorry.
When you were doing this intake and trying to get information, did you do any kind of a survey or ask input from the employees?
No, we did not ask input from the employees.
Didn't think it was relevant or prevalent or could help at all?
I wouldn't say it couldn't help at all, but I would say, our experience told us what we wanted to see the vendor do for us. That's not to say that employees shouldn't have input into their benefits. They do. They most particularly do when we're engaged in collective bargaining. And Mr. Hughes from BSI has been very helpful and patient in coming to collective bargaining negotiation sessions with our employees and, presenting to them what the benefits are, what they consist of, fielding questions from them. And that also was a big factor in why we wanted to go with BSI, because we felt that they understand our relationships with our collective bargaining partners and they respect them. As far as other employees, I don't think a day goes by when I or someone on my staff, and probably even especially Kathleen back there, don't get some question about employee benefits. So in terms of input from the employees, I don't know that that ever really stops. But in terms of a survey, no, we didn't actually go that far.
Okay, you answered my question without answering, because the next question was about the union contract, but you answered that for me, thank you.
Okay, you're most welcome.
Go ahead.
This might be for the gentleman.
Excellent.
We've been self-insured for quite some time, and every once in a while, the question comes up, would we be better off purchasing a policy and rather than being self-insured, being insured that way? Is that something that you look at as part of your analysis when you decide the costs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we look at every year, but a group this size, the size of the county, you're very what they call credible from a health insurance standpoint. We can predict, usually within a point or two, of what that spend is going to be that upcoming year. Moving into the fully insured arena, going to a Capital, a Highmark, whoever.
Right.
What they will do then is they'll figure out what that risk is, and then you have a lot of other layers that get added onto that. There's a lot of premium tax that go on, there's additional admin and additional risk charges. So a lot of times they cap that ceiling, and where they're gonna cap that ceiling is they're gonna run it where they know they're gonna probably make money at the end of the day. Our job is to do everything we can to trim that fat out of there. Now, the other thing that we do purchase is what's called stop-loss insurance, right? That's very, very important to the county, because that way the county's only responsible for up to a certain amount on each particular member. And then we have a fully insured policy that sits over the top that covers if there's $1 million claim, which the county has had.
Yeah.
You're paying a fully insured premium for that to make sure as claims kind of go up and down in a given year, you don't have to deal. I mean, there has been one claim that I heard of in the country that was $16 million in 1 year. If that would hit the county and you didn't have stop-loss insurance, think about what that would do to your budget. So we make sure that we're doing everything we can to control those claims underneath, but we have that catastrophic protection there as well.
Okay, so I was just wondering if that's something that you weighed from time to time. The other question I had related to prescription drug costs. How do you look at that and reduce costs there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually, it's one of the things that we're in the process of right now is negotiating a contract with Capital Blue Cross. So what we did, though, is we did a full market RFP on behalf of the county. So we sent it out, so there's kind of two options from a pharmacy standpoint. You can have your pharmacy carved in, where it's one ID card, it's Capital Blue Cross, and their vendor right now is Prime Therapeutics, or you could carve it out. So you have Capital for your medical, and you have Express Scripts or CVS or Optum for the pharmacy. So what we do is we take every claim the county had over the last 12 months, and we take it out in the market and ask them to reprice it. So basically act as if they were the carrier for the last 12 years or 12 months and see how their pricing compares to Capital Blue Cross with the county. So what we found is there was savings to carve out the pharmacy. That's the results of the RFP, and we discussed this with the team here. But one of the things, especially with the county having a health savings account, there's a little disruption there. But what we did is we used that as leverage to go back to Capital, and we negotiated about a $250,000 reduction off of their pricing by leveraging the carve-out market. All right, so that's one piece, just the pure contracting itself. And then another part is employee education, right? So getting employees to understand the value of a generic over a brand, using mail order versus using a retail pharmacy. Those are things that we put in place to really drive that utilization. Liz was talking about the education and stuff that we do. That's how we control claims over time. And another reason also the why to be self-funded, as we control that spend, that means that's claims that the county didn't spend, which in turn, that fully, if you were fully insured, they would have kept that money. But the pharmacy has done a lot to take years off my hair, or hairs off my head or whatever.
Me too.
Because
I
it
sympathize.
is, if, you gotta be really careful, because the way
Yeah.
you structure your RFP and that contract, they will do everything they can to hide money behind the scenes on you.
Thank you.
Mr. Myers?
Are you negotiating that contract with the pharmacies every year? Is that for the 3-year?
Every year. Every year, we look at the benefits, we do a market check, we look at the medical, the dental, the vision. You know, we're sometimes weighing the savings versus the collective bargaining. Sometimes if you make a carrier change, collective bargaining will say, what's in it for us? So we're weighing that savings sometimes versus it. But one of the things being with Capital Blue Cross, we do the exact same thing we do on the pharmacy side. Every single year, we do a reprice of the medical claims. We look at Highmark, your Aetnas, your Cignas. You've heard of your reference-based price. We're looking at every option that's out there and, you know, then presenting those options to the team here.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sarah. Okay, so in Allentown, or in Lehigh County, I guess they did an audit of the expenses for the prescription drugs, and they found out that sometimes people were getting charged the copay as opposed to the lesser amount, like if they would use like GoodRx or something like that, because they were going through their insurance. And they found that that could actually save the county money. They also said that when I was talking to the person there, they said that in their claims, the insurance company or the prescription drug company offered them sort of like, we'll reimburse you for all of your claims at the end of the year, or we'll give you this standard payment. The standard payment holds less risk for getting back reimbursement, but they found that if they would have chosen reimbursement, they would have gotten a heck of a lot more. Is that something that we do in this county?
Well, it sounded like there was two parts of the question. Let me kind of start with.
Yeah, there's two parts.
Let me start with the first part on the prescription. So every year, there's an audit that's done on the prescription drugs to make sure that there is, you know, someone wasn't charged incorrectly. There's also an audit of the contract on the prescription drug. Like Capital Blue Cross guarantees a certain amount of rebate dollars on each drug that's a rebatable drug. So there's an audit that's done to make sure that they hit those rebates. If not, there's actually money that comes back to the county. Capital Blue Cross hit the rebate guarantee. They also hit their discount guarantee. So that's looked at every single year. I heard you also say GoodRx. So GoodRx, if you've ever seen the TV commercials where that is a great program, it's usually a better program for people that usually do not have health insurance, right? Because pharmacies don't accept both, right? They won't accept the GoodRx as well as run it through your Capital Blue Cross. So you can do the math though if you want. If the GoodRx price is cheaper than what the pharmacy is going to charge you through Capital Blue Cross, you can do that. However, they got to understand it's not tracking towards their deductible if they're on the HSA plan, as well as it's not tracking towards your out-of-pocket max. So that's an option. You see that on TV. That is a lot more for even the lady that goes in there with a little child. She doesn't have health insurance, and that's a great solution for people that don't have health insurance.
Right, but sometimes the copay that you pay for the drug is more than what the drug they would charge you on GoodRx. So first, why is that? And should we encourage people to defer to GoodRx when it's cheaper so that it can save everybody money? Because it seems like that is almost arbitrary what the pharmaceutical company is paying, is allowing a person to pay individually who doesn't have insurance. But if you have insurance, it can often cost you more for that drug.
Yeah.
Even though it's going towards your deductible. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And ultimately that costs the county more.
Correct. Now, the one thing also with the GoodRx, kind of letting you guys know how the program works. The reason that GoodRx exists is the medications that has that savings are more expensive, the brand medications. So who is really paying the difference? How is GoodRx able to offer that at such a low price? The person that is paying that on the back end is the manufacturer, right? The manufacturer wants that person on that drug. They're still making enough profit to be okay, but they know that drug has a generic equivalent that someone can go get that's a much cheaper rate. So if you kind of think of it, the goal of the county, we really don't want them on the brand medication when the generic alternative is actually there, right? So that's one of the things from an education standpoint, GoodRx is there, but also the majority of the employees at the county are on an HSA plan, so everything tracks towards your deductible first. It's not a copay, it's the cost of the drug. So that's where there will have to weigh. GoodRx is, anyone can use it. You can have insurance, you don't have insurance, you can use it. But the one thing I don't like about GoodRx, I like the savings that comes with it, but we're also then steering people to higher cost medications when there's a whole list of generics that are available for that exact same drug.
At the end of the day, though, if you're saving money, it doesn't matter if you use the generic or
Yeah, but the difference in the cost of the generic for the brand could be very, very significant. I mean, there are brand drugs that are thousands of dollars versus generics that are a couple dollars.
But what about in the cases where a brand drug is truly better? Like, there's some formularies where the use of the generic, it's just not as effective, and you could prove that. Or if you have a specific condition and the doctor says, no, you really have to be on this, then in those cases, do you work with the consumers, that being our employees, that they can go through some kind of window or that they could break through to actually get the drug that they need, as opposed to?
Absolutely, and those programs exist today. They're called step therapy, where you kind of start at one, and if it's not working, you kind of work your way up.
Right,
the
but if someone
process.
had already done that 3 times ago on 3 different insurances, do you accept that, or do they have to?
Yeah, well, if
read
we ever make a change between, what we do is we take all the prior authorization, the step therapy, and we have the new PBM load those in. So that way someone doesn't have to do it again. Because that would be, from a union standpoint, that would be a nightmare, right? All of a sudden, if people had to go through that process again, January 2nd, they have to go refill and start all over, that's when phones really start to ring. So
That's right.
if we do make that change, which we've done in the past, it's a file feed that goes over to make sure all that prior authorization and that stuff's there.
Tara, did you have any more questions? I'm
Yeah, she had
sorry.
a second question. I'm not sure I fully understood the second question. If you could ask me the second one again.
Yeah, what I want to do is I want to go back. I heard exactly what you said about the pharmaceutical contract and the difference between the brand and the generic. What I'm concerned about is in the negotiation, you said that you take I know you didn't use the word standard rebate, but that's what it sounded like, or standard reimbursement, but that's what it sounded like. And I'm wondering if we're getting everything back that we should. So I'm going to go back to my contact and try to get better questions for you by tomorrow. Because
Okay,
I think
which is
there's
fine,
something there.
which we obviously, we welcome the questions. I mean, the pharmacy RFP process, I mean, it's not a lot of fun. We started this,
No, I imagine
probably-
it's not.
yeah. So we started this probably about 4 months ago, and we're in the process of wrapping it up right now. And that's one of the things we realized, we can't negotiate in a vacuum. We can't go back to Capital and Prime Therapeutics is who their vendor is and say, we want this, until we can show them what the market looks like. And that's where we got to be really careful, where we're not getting, to her point, the standard pricing. We want to make sure, especially a group the size here of the county, that we're really getting best in price contracting.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think I will have more questions for you tomorrow, if that's okay.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Myers?
So I'm clear on this. Even if they do use GoodRx, they still have a deductible to meet, correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
So it wouldn't affect that price one way or another. The deductible's still going to be there.
that's correct. If I'm in the HSA plan, I have my deductible and I have the funds in my HSA account, and I can use my HSA card if I use GoodRx to go ahead and pay for that prescription. The problem is that pharmacy is not submitting that claim in the capital, which means it did not bring my deductible down. When GoodRx originally rolled out a couple of years ago, the pharmacy was accepting both. And then that's a huge win for the employee, right? Great, I get the lower rate and I get the deductible credit. However, they've kind of stopped, and a lot of that is because they're getting the money back directly from the pharmacy. I think they were getting their hand slapped, or from the manufacturer, they were getting their hand slapped a little bit because they were kind of collecting it from both ends.
Thank you, that answers the question.
Mr.
Yeah, I heard, I have two things. One, I know someone used RX, and I know there's other cards coming out now. And one of the things that seemed to happen was it might be good for a one-time pop, like let's say you're going through some stuff, you want sleeping pills, I don't know. But the thing is, so you can get this major cut. You go online, they say you see the things. But I was told, then they said, yeah, but you know what happened? When they went in for a refill, it was something like, with the good RX card, it was $35 or something, but when they went in for the refill, it was $320. In other words, the good RX card got you, but it wasn't gonna, then you're gonna pay full price.
Yeah, and
if
the
you
other,
wanna keep that medication. So it might be good for a one-time pop, and I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it seemed like it didn't cover the,
yeah, I think what you're talking, I don't think that's
Maintenance.
necessarily how GoodRx works, because GoodRx is actually a negotiated rate. Like, you can pull it up on your phone, and
Oh,
you
yeah,
can walk in
yeah.
there and ask the way. I think what you're talking about are some of these coupons on the front end for these high-cost drugs.
yeah.
So someone gets and a lot of times they funnel through the doctor, right? Oh, you need this prescription. Here, I have a coupon, you can get it for free.
Yeah.
Right? And that's literally what happens. And who's paying that? The manufacturer is allowing that for free. The employee goes, picks it up, it costs them nothing that
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah.
Right? Employee likes the drug, it's working. Employee goes to fill the drug the next time, it's $1,200, right? The manufacturer did that on purpose, or sometimes it's even 90 days or 120 days. There they get it for free.
Yeah.
It's somewhat, I hate to say, gets them hooked on the drug. It's
Well, I
not
was
like they're
gonna say,
addicted,
it's like,
but it gets them, they're like, it's working, my life is better.
Yeah.
Gets that member very concerned about changing, that now they got you, and now when the bill comes to the county, now it's a $1,200, once they meet their deductible and it's a county bill, now they're on a $1,200 brand drug when they maybe could have started at a generic, but that was a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, they're sort of like, they're like pushers in Armani suits in corporate offices.
Yeah, and that's ultimately one of the reasons we
some
worked
of
with
them
the
are.
union to get the HSA plan in, right? The HSA plan it's a little bit, I'll call it a little bit complicated on the front end.
Yeah.
But what it does is it builds in that consumerism, right? The county did a good thing by putting good money in the employee's account in the HSA, and we got this done across all the union contracts. Well, what that does is now every time someone goes out, they have the freedom to go where they want, you can kind of buy healthcare how they want, but the more they act as a consumer, the more they value their HSA dollars. And we've seen that. We've seen the number of generic fills go up. We've seen ER utilization go down. We've seen telemedicine go up. All that usually goes hand in hand with the HSA, which I would love to say healthcare is going like this. Not happening, right? It's going up like this, but the HSA will widen that gap out underneath. It'll go up, but not at the exact same rate.
Well, that's the second part of my question, which is this. You're negotiating and you're going out. There's two things happening. One is, I understand a lot of the generic companies are being bought up by single groups, and generics aren't what they used to be in terms of cost. Not all of them, some of them. And then they slowly take over the market and they can do what they want. As prices change, and I'm sure that the drug market is a fluid market, the legal drug market. The thing is, do you negotiate, is your negotiations on an ongoing basis? In other words, you've been covering a certain drug, and it was mentioned about formularies, and I know some are considered primary, then type A, type B, or whatever, or C. Are you in constant negotiations and discussions in terms of watching prices if something jumps up to go to a different manufacturer, or?
I don't know if maybe negotiation is the right word, but we're watching for the wasteful spend is probably the best way I can put it. I'll give you an example. One of the things we're looking at is a different formulary this year. And the formulary that we're looking at, they call it their elite formulary is what they call it. And it's got a bunch of drugs that are just truly wasteful drugs. Like it's a cream versus an ointment, but the ointment is 5 times the cost, right? Why is the ointment allowed to be filled when it's 5 times? It's a 1,000 milligram pill, that's 1,400, but 2 500 milligram pills are 200, right? Just take 2 of the 500, it's a lot cheaper than the 1,000. So we're working with that too, and again, that's where we're watching that kind of stuff to get that. Like the EpiPen's a prime example, right? Right? That guy bought out the EpiPen, and now they have an EpiPen with verbal, like an actual recorded instructions how to use it. Well, guess what? It's a $5,000 EpiPen, right? Does that really need to be on your formulary? And those are the things that we're watching. So we're really not maybe negotiating, but we're making sure that stuff doesn't slip on there.
All right, so you're constantly monitoring and rolling
Yeah.
along. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, but you almost got to do it 24/7.
I was
bet
gonna
you-
say,
I
I
bet you
I
do,
can
as things
imagine, I
change.
can
Yeah.
imagine.
Okay, well, can I have a motion to put this forward to tomorrow? Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for the support. I mean, we love working for the county for the last 3 years, and we got more work ahead of us, and we love working with the employees and the HR team and stuff.
I
So
just think
thank
it's
you.
fascinating being on the consumer end to know that somebody's out there doing this kind of watchdog and this kind of tracking for us, so thank you.
Yeah, and the one thing I take, if you looked at RFP, the other thing is our customer service team and our open enrollment. I mean, we're out in front of the employees as much as the county will let us, so we appreciate your support.
And do you have to deal with each of our specific unions when that time comes as well? You're up there with Liz and everybody else?
Yep, where we were with them at the table, running plan designs, especially when we rolled out the HSA, we were really explaining the value of the HSA and why it works for the employees better than the plan design that they have today.
And this is a 3-year contract, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Thank you. And that would be starting what, January 1?
No, it actually starts November 1.
This year?
Yeah, I think our contract expires October 31st.
It's something like that.
Okay, all right.
I don't know why that happened that way, but
When's open enrollment? That's probably why.
Yeah, exactly.
When's open enrollment?
Open enrollment will be probably towards the end of October.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah,
so
we're
much.
getting ready for the virtual world and doing it that way too, so we're
Oh,
ready for that
great.
too. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Okay, so that leaves us 2 items. That leaves us IT and the quarterly, the 19 and quarterly statements. So let's do IT.
I already gave you my comments. Mark and Bob are here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, first, why don't I start with, why don't we let them come up, because we're going to talk to them. No, thank you. First, I wanted to say why we wanted to do this, that I guess my original thought is we are in the middle of the contract, and you've had to do so much differently this year because of how different the world was. So I thought, because as chair of the committee, I thought this is a big contract. It's something that we did without the expectation of having to deal with COVID. So I thought it would be a good time for us pre-upsurge, potentially, to review how the year has gone, how things have gone, how the contract is to date, and then anything we need to talk about kind of going forward if we're planning ready in case something should happen again, because nobody expected to happen what did until for the whole world to go virtual. So, we just wanted to have an open dialogue about that. So I wasn't looking for any kind of indictment or question on the contract. I just thought it was a good time to have an open discussion, if you will.
Okay, so, all right, so, I'll start and then I'll let.
Oh, yeah, and I guess you should state your name for Aileen. Thank you.
Mark Alexander, Vision Technologies. I'm a portfolio manager. I run the Northampton County contract for IT services. Bob reports to me, and I'm responsible for the contract terms and conditions and also assisting Bob with operations in general whenever he needs assistance, but he pretty much runs the program for us here, okay? In terms of the original contract and how we've had to adapt based on the pandemic, I'll admit to you that in an IT environment where technology changes fairly regularly, we are sort of in a position where when something like this does happen, because of the the IT services and operations that we provide, not only for this contract, but across our other federal and state and commercial contracts, is that we have to live in an adaptive situation, right, in terms of how we provide technology, how we implement technology, and so forth. So luckily for the county, the county had made decisions and budgeted dollars for things like remote access for certain things. So the technology elements were there, it just wasn't there in the number, the quantity that was required when the state started closing facilities and governments and so forth. So what our team did, and I'll let Bob speak to this more specifically, is what our team did is we just simply shifted resources to focus on what was necessary to make sure that the county could continue to operate and be successful in a manner that was expected of the county from an IT perspective. So that's the sort of the basic answer in terms of how do we adapt, and if this happens again, sort of what do we do to prepare? We basically pay attention to technology and what would need to be done to support county operations, and we prepare to expand and contract as necessary while remaining within the direction of what we're supposed to do within the confines of the contract. Now, when I say within the confines of the contract, I mean we have certain SLAs and things that we have to meet. We have, service delivery requirements and so forth. But, again, those are things that can change, and we're not so restricted that we can't adapt and be prepared to support the needs of the county. So I don't know if that answers all your questions before we get into any specifics.
I think we have specific questions that'll come, but it's
Can I
good
ask
to
Mr.
hear.
Alexander, when we first did this contract, there were two gentlemen who came. Were you one of the two gentlemen that were here?
No, sir. That
okay.
was the VP of Professional Services, who was my boss, and the VP of Professional Services Business Development. I am more of your operations guy.
Oh, great.
I'm not here to sell you anything.
That's good.
So maybe my first question should be, and I'm going to let everybody have a turn that wants, but how do I ask that? I mean, you walked into us as we were with the systems that we had, with the kind of computers that we had. So how would you rate us? And where did we need to go from the beginning, and where are we now? Because I know that
Okay, so Mr. Barron made some valid comments about the fact that the staff that was here was largely the staff that is still here, was number one, not right-sized. Okay.
Meaning?
Right-sized means that you have people in the right places to provide the right kind of support that the county needs. So, for example, we made a change to the service desk to improve quality in terms of support and calls, issues, tickets, okay? We didn't have the number of people that were there, and we didn't have the structure that we needed. So that was a change that we made, and we actually added people. And that was part of the contract for us as well, is that we were to add several people in that area. But in addition to doing that, we modified the structure, okay? That was an improvement. In terms of technology, the county does a very good job of planning for technology refresh. And I a lot of times will tell some of the folks that I work with, such as my program management office for professional services, that I think that this county has a better security and operational support stance than our own company does. Because of the planning and because of the diligence of the IT services team, and the commitment to making sure that, for example, you have the appropriate intrusion detection, you have the appropriate vulnerability scanning, you do, and Mr. Barron mentioned as well, the annual penetration testing, where we actually stress the system to make sure that what we've got in place can take an attack, okay? From an overall program perspective, some of the things that we are doing that weren't in place before is we are a CMMI Level 3 certified company in our services group, our professional services group.
What is CMMI?
That is maturity, that is capability, maturity, model index, level 3. Capability, maturity, model index. And to break it down in layman's terms, it basically says that we have, of the 5 levels, we're at the 3rd level of maturity for our process implementation to support what we provide on our contracts. So that means we have things like capacity management planning, we have intrusion detection process, we have service desk process, that we not only implement those processes, we test those processes, we then have peer audits of those processes, things like that. So this, in a nutshell, it's basically a way to indicate that we've reached a level that, how do I put it? We've reached a level of maturity within an industry model where you can look at it as a customer and say, okay, so we know that this exists for our IT services group, that there's things going on behind the scenes that make sure that not only the implemented systems that are here to support you are really what you need, but also that the process and the people that are behind it are also doing the right things and doing them the right way, okay? With that, so some of the things that we are doing is, for example, we're working on implementing customer satisfaction surveys, because we want to verify that what the service that we're providing is always improving. So what we do is we basically put that into a cycle where we do the surveys, we analyze the surveys, we find out where the issues may be, we fix those issues with training, with corrective action, and then we retest, and we just keep doing that. And we just try to get ourselves into an area of continuous improvement. And, you know, not knowing entirely everything about the process that happened before we came, that to us was a gap because I don't think that was going on. So really, in terms of other improvements, those are some of the areas where we're trying to put together a structure underneath the organization at the program level to further support the technology.
Okay. Can I start with you to ask questions?
Yeah.
or-
Yes, you can. And I don't know. Is your mic on?
I'm sorry that my mic wasn't on. My question is, of course, me and Bob don't get involved as too much in our IT meetings, but I have a question. You said you enhanced service desk team. Does Visions at this location have a service desk team? And then how do they handle the projects? Do you have a project team too, or how does that work?
So yes, we have a service desk team. We have, our service desk team is broken up into 2 groups, which is your sort of lower level support and then your mid-level support, so that we have coverage and tiered, okay? And then we cross-train, okay? Those folks, so you know, also work with IT operations, which are the folks that run your servers, all of your infrastructure, your background infrastructure, okay, your network, all of that. They also cross-train with them on projects, okay? Projects are primarily run out of each of the individual groups. So if it's an IT operations project, one of the individuals from that team will lead that project, and the project planning will happen between myself, Bob, and the manager of that group, and then whomever is working on it, okay? So that happens, and I mentioned IT operations because people think, you know, if I can't get on Wi-Fi, well, that's IT operations, okay? So everybody's pretty familiar with that. But, you know, we also have application development. Application development doing things like CRM, which is customer relationship management. Any of your applications where you go in and, for example, online forms for Graysdale is something that's in the queue. That team would put together whoever's going to support that, and they would start working that as a project, and then it, again, would work with the other groups as necessary to do those implementations.
And you'd have due dates when those projects are.
Yeah, so, we do have due dates. Largely, those are driven by the needs of the county. Now, we do have some projects where we're making improvement, but there's a lot of discovery that has to happen, okay? I don't know if anybody here is familiar with YouGov, but, that's.
Not familiar, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so that's a tool that's used that's required a lot of discovery. So we're at the point now where some work has been done on that. And now that we've gotten to the point where we're a little deeper into discovery, now we go back and we work on setting a due date. And what we do is we set the due dates for component parts because it's made of several modules, so.
Any other questions?
I'm good right now.
I can come back to you, because
Yeah,
you'll know.
I'm
at the
good.
end. Go ahead, John.
I'm the IT.
One of the issues that we had was when employees went to work from home. What were some of the challenges there, and how did you address it?
A lot of the challenges that we had there is we did find that there were quite a few employees that weren't familiar with the VPN connection or the FortiClient, which is what they would use to connect to the county network. So that generated a lot of calls right there. So we did have to revamp some of the documentation, which was just basic training documentation to show them how to connect and what to do. And then just the basic troubleshooting that went into it. So that was, I think, the major issue that we did have. We did have a lot of connectivity issues with some home Wi-Fi networks that the service desk did try to walk people through correcting. They were able to do that for a lot of people, but there were still some that they had to end up calling an outside vendor, like a Best Buy or a Staples, to have them look at their own home networks. So we ran into a couple of those things, not too many that we weren't able to resolve.
Now, I think the other question you meant was either YouGov or NeoGov. There is a program that we use for job applications. Have you looked at that, how people can apply for positions online, and is that functioning well?
That's NeoGov. He mentioned YouGov, YouGovernment, which is the ticketing system, and NeoGov it's a separate HR system.
I think I was referring to the HR one where you apply for a job. How is that working out?
Oh, that's working well. That NeoGov is actually provided by a third party. So as far as the development goes, there's not much development that goes into it from the county IT side. It's really the basic support of it. It's hosted offsite in the cloud. So as long as we have connectivity to it, there's very little that we have to do with the interface between NeoGov and one solution, which is the county's ERP system.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to start off, because I know you might go back again. I said Mark. I wanted to ask Mark a question. Thank you for being here, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate it for showing up.
No problem.
Where's your headquarters, like your main headquarters? Where are you located out of? I forget.
Our main headquarters is in Glen Burnie, Maryland.
Maryland.
Our professional services group is headquartered out of Chantilly, Virginia.
Okay.
And we have offices around the United States and employees all over the United States and in England.
Do you do any other counties in Pennsylvania?
Not yet, sir.
Okay. Okay, so, and your contract, now I know Mr. Barron is our Director of Fiscal Affairs, and he would, I guess he's the contract monitor, your contact point here at the county.
Yes, sir.
Would he also, we used to have somebody here, you remember, Charles, Al Jordan, he was sort of like the guy that we go to. Would that be Bob Mace, but not Steve?
Bob, yes, Bob is Al Jordan's replacement.
Okay, that's good. Now, I've been dealing with Bob, and I have no problem. Bob and I don't think we've had really any issues. We've sat down and tried to work a few things out. Here's my concern that I've had, and it comes from a very specific area. And you heard about COVID, and I know the challenges. Part of the problem we run into is in Pennsylvania, in a home rule charter county, North Carolina's calling. We have separation of powers. And so you're going to negotiate with the executive branch. And most of what happens day to day is going to be with them and their employees and what happens. Our need or use for IT compared to that is rather limited. But the problem we do have is that as the governing body of the county, by law, we have to have these meetings. And by law, we have to have the public able to be involved in our meetings. When we went to virtual, we had a great many issues with Skype. And it really didn't work out well at all. And we worked on it. We did a lot. We tried. Now, one of my concerns was, and this wasn't through Bob, but a lot of the problems were blamed on us. Well, you don't understand how to use it. It's user error. You 9 elected officials and your staff, you just don't understand technology. You know, it's all user problem. You guys just don't know what you're doing. I sort of say that IT is supposed to work for the user, not the other way around. What's the point of IT? So we had a variety of issues in terms of being able to have the public call in. I had various staff members manning computers, the screens, we'd get multicolored pictures if we got a picture at all. And I was told, well, you have to use Skype. Skype is what it is. It's about security. And we paid for Skype. Now, the concern is when you're doing things for the day-to-day operations of the county, security I get, believe me, I understand completely. I'm speaking from our end of the user as the council needing to use it. Everything here is public. We're being recorded right now. You're being recorded. I'm being recorded. And believe me, people write about what we do and say. They can have secrets. We can't. So really, security is less of an issue for us because if someone were to get on our Zoom or whatever we'd use and say, make an ugly face or obscene thing, we'd shut them down. So I guess the question I have for you is coming from the company. We were told we have no options. It's Skype or nothing. But I've been doing research with municipalities around here, County of Lehigh, City of Bethlehem, the little borough of Bath, Hanover Township, Redevelopment Authority. They use Zoom, they use GoToMeeting, and they have had no real issues. They've had no real security issues. So I guess what I'm asking you is, if there is a way you can work with Bob and us to assure what you was indicated earlier, I think we may very well get into a situation this winter where we're going to have to go virtual again. I really do. I mean, I don't want it to happen, but nobody's paying attention that much really out there. I mean, people on vacation, schools, colleges. So I think we'll probably get a blip before we get our vaccine. And the only reason, actually, we had a doctor from NACAC come in. I asked her what she thought of our setup. She said it stinks. You know, but this is what we had to do because I couldn't run virtual meetings. And I mean, I guess I got a little tired of being told it's your fault. You don't know what you're doing. Can I ask you if you can please help us to do the job we have to do as the county government? I mean, I don't know. You're probably doing they love you and you're doing a great job for them. And I don't know if there's any other complaints. But as someone who has to run a meeting, I had a lot of problems with our ability to run virtual meetings. And I realize that's, like you had said, this is part of that COVID deal, which is out of the ordinary.
Sure.
But I am worried that going forward, we may have that issue again, and I'd really love to get it resolved.
Okay. So, I mean, what I'm basically hearing is that there's a technology issue with the specific virtual platform that was selected.
Yeah.
So I will tell you from Vision's perspective, we do not We don't make that selection. That selection is based on what the county is using, where the county wants to go with security and such things. Yes, the county has purchased Skype. Our team, okay, the vision team, makes recommendations based on our experience, based on our expertise. But ultimately, what technology you use is not entirely up to us. We can make the suggestions, okay? Skype is reliable. Skype is something that we use. We also use a version of Zoom at our company. It's Zoom backed, but it's got other security wrapped around it, okay? So there are a host of different things out there, and different people like different things. I think what it may come down to is, maybe, and we do have a training function in IT, is that maybe if we could provide additional training on how to use these technologies, because I have to let you know, and I said I'm not here to sell you anything, okay, because that's not my role.
Yeah.
But, professional services is one of 5 core business units of Vision Technologies. And our competencies are virtual meetings and AV and, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we do the installations. We have solutions where you can walk into a room and look at your phone and only touch your phone. The room will turn on for you when you walk in. So the complexity of solutions just depends on where the county wants to go with things. But what I would suggest, because, we do understand that sometimes issues can be boiled down to technology. When it's boiled down to technology, then it's our role and responsibility to address that for you, okay? But on the other hand, if users are having issues with technology use, it's important to remember that we have users that have no technological experience and have a lot, and we have to be able to try to support them in from an operational perspective, make sure the technology is available, but then have to an extent, rely on the users to educate themselves on how to use the technology. So, I think we do our best.
Well, if I just, I could see user errors and you're being able to draw a correlation between the problems we had and user errors. But I don't think there's necessarily been proven that it's a causation. I think there's people up here who are very knowledgeable about IT. And my concern is that if we can't have a meeting, it's your fault that you can't have a virtual meeting. You don't know what you're doing. I find that unacceptable. I can't speak for the other 8 members of council. And as an independent body of the county government, we will have to do what we have to do to make sure we can have a virtual meeting and it goes smoothly. But we've had issues. I'm going to be honest with you. We've had issues. Bob and I have talked about the issues. I think we addressed some of them, but then it went away because we brought everybody back in. But when we were trying to do it, I don't think, Bob, you would disagree that we had some major issues. Now, getting into whose fault it is or isn't, that's why I'm glad I'm talking to you, because I don't want to go down that road.
No,
we got
absolutely
tired
not.
of hearing that you guys are at fault, you don't know what you're doing. And I'm thinking, well, the borough of Bath is having to be able to do meetings, and I know some of those people, and I think that some of us know as much about computers as they do. And I'm on boards, and we have virtual meetings without a hitch. So I guess the question is, I don't know, between user problems or the platform itself, I think we got to get it resolved. That's just where I'm coming
I don't disagree with you. Unfortunately, I'm not privy to what the individual issues have been.
Yeah.
Well,
Bob, do you have any, maybe Bob, do you want to add? Because I don't want to be slamming Bob because I do talk to Bob.
That's okay. No, not a problem.
It's the platform that bothers me. We just seem to have had issues with that platform.
Yeah, the platform itself is really designed as Skype for Business. Drawing that distinction, there's a Skype, which is a consumer, and then a Skype for Business, which is what is used here at the county. That is really designed for collaboration. It doesn't seem to take into account external parties that need to be able to connect.
Right.
There are compatibility issues, so to address that, we talked to vendors, Polycom or Poly, is the company now. They have a solution called Clarity, which is their equivalent to WebEx, Zoom, BlueJeans, all the other meetings. That is cross-platform. It's much easier to use, and that's a purchase that is on the way. So with that, that gives us the capability to have an enterprise-wide system that will benefit the entire county. County council, courts, CYF, and all human services.
Do you do the
Grayscale if
courts
need be.
now, that they're virtual? You're taking care of the virtual, because I know the courts do some virtual.
Yeah, they're doing a combination of Skype for Business and Polycom calling as
Oh,
well.
you're working that with them?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
So they've been doing that for some time.
Oh.
But the Poly Clarity solution is much easier to maintain, much easier to use. So it's going to be more intuitive than Skype for Business is. Skype for Business, the version that we're on is 2013. It is now 2019.
Yeah.
So it's something.
How soon would we be able to get that going, that Poly?
Clarity? As soon as we get the hardware in, and I believe that, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, that's something that's on the agenda for last.
When you pass the resolution that's in front of you for the 2.5 million, you'll have your clarity.
That is part of that, yes.
Oh, good.
So as soon as we get the hardware in-house, we coordinate, and they will do an install, and we'll start testing and rolling it out.
Thank you.
Now, what we did do is pilot Zoom. We have 16 accounts throughout the county, 1 in courts. We have it in human services as well, DCED. They are not quite there yet with security. September 27th of this month, they are finally making passwords or passcodes mandatory. They're not going to give people the option, it's just going to be enforced. That's something a lot of people have been waiting for. They offered it with their free accounts and enforced it on all the free accounts, but never on any of the paid accounts.
Right.
So that is a step forward for them. So that's finally good news.
Yeah.
6 months down the road.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not speaking to the day-to-day needs of our people, but part of our problem is we're part-time. So we come in, and I don't think, we're necessarily part of the equation oftentimes. And but we're, by charter at least, we're a necessary part of the equation because none of you get paid unless we have a vote. So, I mean, our need may be very specific, but it's necessary under the law. And as I said, I'm concerned going forward. Now, maybe this will all be okay and it'll work, despite the good doctor from NACAC's eloquent description of our way of doing things. But I mean, I'm just nervous. And it seemed like I wasn't getting anywhere. So, maybe we can work on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is no one-size-fits-all solution for everyone.
Yeah.
And you brought it up right there where you're part-time and you're.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have a thing. You're working with the county security. I get everything you're doing, but there's this other component to county government, and unless you're familiar with a home rule county government, I mean, you don't realize, oh, there's those guys, that aren't here most of the time. But those guys, by law, have to do certain things, and the technology, we weren't able to do what we had to do, given the situation. I mean, I don't want to bring people into this room. I mean, we could take a gamble. Nobody twisted my arm to run for office. So I'm going to sit here. We may be blowing germs at each other right now. But the thing is, I worry about people coming in, especially if we get another lockdown. But I've got to assure them that they'll be able to partake in courtesy of the floor by calling up, because you sat in on a few of our meetings.
Yeah, I think the Clarity solution is definitely going to meet those needs.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I'm done.
Mr. Lott, do you have any questions? Mr. Myers?
Okay. I have a few questions. I have a couple comments, and most importantly, Mr. Heckman brought up something that's very, very important to me. When we were doing the Skype meetings on virtual meetings, I couldn't be here for physical reasons. And it was very difficult to hear things and get things back and try to respond to things. I saw more, Tom and myself, than we actually heard from what's going on. If polyclarity is gonna take care of that problem, I'm all for that. And I sincerely hope that that does take care of our problem, because it was a huge problem, because now you're asking me to vote on something, and when I actually showed up for the meeting, I did not even see what was in front of me until I showed up here. And when I showed up here, I shouldn't have been here, because doctor's order said, keep your butt home, but that's not here nor there. My other issue I have with that is when I forget to update my login, I have to bring my body in here to reload and set a new password up.
That is something you will no longer have to do.
I sincerely hope I don't have another
All the clarity
issue
with
where
that.
I sincerely hope I don't have another issue where I have to stay home, because a couple times I came in here, it wasn't supposed to be. So you're telling me that's gonna disappear?
If somebody does tell you you need to bring your device in, just give me a call. Let me
I
know.
will do that, Bob, believe me, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna.
You're not shy.
Okay. Steve had mentioned earlier that they're going to start trying to set up courtroom 1. Am I correct with that, Steve? Or are we adding stuff to there so we no longer have to worry about being spread all over the good courtroom?
We're actually better than courtroom 1. We're going to get a solution that's portable. Like I said now, we have the production studio downstairs that feeds this room. What we'd have to do is disassemble it, take it down to courtroom 1, and borrow equipment to make it work. We're gonna buy a production studio, which is included in that resolution. And as we do that, one of the things we'll be able to do is set up a meeting for downstairs. So if we have a situation where you wanna do committee meetings here, but the crowd gets too large, it's a quick assembly. We will have somebody here. There's always somebody here to support your meetings from IT, and then they'll be able to do that. We're gonna spec it out to the size of courtroom 1, because that's obviously our largest room, and acoustically, it's the most challenging. And then that way we could pick and choose the options for smaller rooms to be able to video conference. That's the administration plan for the building. And all that equipment, like I said, is owned by the county. So every piece of equipment we buy is the county's. Vision just supports it.
And this is coming out of the package you're asking us to approve?
Correct, it is, it's in there.
That's a smile on my face, I can tell you that right now. Because, I sympathize with Mr. Heckman. We are part-time, and I may not be the most computer savvy person, but I still got answers to the people who elected me to office. And that's more important than anything you throw my way. That's what we have to do. So I want to make sure we're okay with that. And you're telling us that there's going to be a better version of Skype than what we're using right now, because the version we're using right now is a royal pain in the arse. When I'm spending more time looking at my fellow councilmen and not hearing a thing, we're looking, and we were talking to ourselves, It's like, what the hell are they saying? They're talking, we can't hear, and then we gotta come in, and it's like, well, what is this? And it's embarrassing, and I lean on Tom, because he's we came in together, we're probably gonna go out together. But, I lean on him because he has knowledge of how to get these things done. And it's important to me, and I say, hey, Tom, and it's good, but if you got answers to this, I'm gonna be a very happy man. That's the most important thing. And we just have to iron out this double tap system, because I worked at Lafayette for 26 years and used a computer. The last 7, I like the fact that if I went on, I got a text message on my phone, I answered it and I was in. Is that in effect yet?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Two-factor authentication.
Oh, two-factor authentication? Yeah, I think you did receive an email today, or should have received an email today.
From Scott.
Okay, I'll check it
Yeah, that should
when I
come
get
from
back, because
Scott.
I didn't see it, but I will sure check it, because I sure like to get mine straightened out, because I'm the dummy that can't, I constantly calling you guys to get me back online, and I want to stop that as soon as possible, because I may not be the most, like I said, literate person with it, but I would rather just go on and do what I got to do and then go from there. But a lot of things have come out of this conversation that we had tonight that has given me, and I hope from your guys' standpoint of view, that what you're telling us is going to be factual and we're good, because if it's not, and we have problems, gentlemen, you have yet to see the bear that you're poking.
Well, if you
Because
do
I
have any
think what's going to
questions or any
happen is
concerns-
you're going to have an explosion from members of this council who have been biting our lip, because we are the most important thing when it comes to the community. You guys can be behind these walls. When I walk into a ShopRite or a Giant or Home Depot, and they ask me a question and I can't answer it, I'm coming back to you guys and saying, why do I look like an ass? So I hope what you're telling us goes through and we come out smelling like a rose. I can't be any more crystal clear or plain about what's important to me and what I think is important to the people who are asking us to do the job. And, you know, because I understand now that as long as I'm scared, like Mr. Heckman is, and I may be bouncing all over the place, that as the weather gets cold and we have to go back to virtual, that we got to come across looking good. I know that Judge Corey did a fantastic job with holding court why that went down. And I'm sure he's going to make sure he's going to be rock solid if that happens again. But if you guys have come up with a solution for this problem, I thank you, and I hope you're right.
If you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me.
A key,
Before you go, I want to make sure I get your number.
a key element that is missing in much of this conversation, this room had never been designed to be a teleconferencing center. That was not the intent, and I say that as the person behind the technology. When I served on council, when we developed this room was developed and designed to be able to be seen from the community, to be able to go out on a streaming service. It was never wired, considered, or contemplated to be a two-way room. So you did not have any of the infrastructure that you needed to do this work. Vision, as you all well know, because many of you were here and spent the extra time to try things out, to make things work, this wasn't being done as a Skype meeting. It was being done as an in-present and Skype meeting at the same time, and this room was not set up for any of that. And many of you were here, standing at the podium, sitting back here, out in the hallway, trying to get the microphones to work, trying to get the phone to dial in. None of that was contemplated when this room was built. You all know the extra cabling that's been done here. Each week when something else didn't work out, we added whatever else was necessary. It's been taken very seriously that this is the governing body. The county executive and I both served here in the same capacity you are here today, and recognize that these things need to be fixed. And in every occurrence, in every case when there was a problem, we stepped up, we made sure that you had what was necessary, but this was not a foreseeable circumstance. And making Skype work with this equipment here was nearly impossible. So much of that equipment has been changed. The microphones are remarkably more sensitive than ever before. The phone now works where we don't have to crane a microphone over to try and get people in and out. There are a lot of things that are otherwise being done that weren't before, and this is just the next step in what needs to be done to make this work back and forth.
But you do realize that the other places like Bath, Hanover Township, Bethlehem, they weren't wired necessarily.
Right, they were operating from home, though. They weren't operating from home and from their
But what if we all operated from home? Could have we done it?
Yeah, that would have been, that would have been the most simple, yes.
Well,
So,
the
wait.
people that were home when we tried to do the meeting.
Saw
when we
each
took it-
other, but they didn't see you here in this room, and they couldn't hear you in this room because they were on delay, because this room is not set up to be a
All right,
teleconferencing room.
so all this is good, and I'm glad we're getting somewhere. Why didn't I know this back in March?
We
You absolutely didn't, you absolutely did know this in March.
That if we
Absolutely.
all stayed home and we could have done it, well, all right, I'm gonna go back and, this is what I
That's-
wanna get
that's
away
all-
from.
everyone
This is
has
what I wanna get away from.
Can I,
Mr.
I'm gonna
Gertenbach.
call
I thought I
order.
had the
No, I
floor.
want to call order for a minute because I don't want to resurrect an old argument between the administration and council when I have these gentlemen here who I've asked questions of, and I feel like I want to continue to ask questions of them. I still have a few more points I want to make, so I don't want to take away from the dialogue, but I would like to talk to them. Like, we could talk to Charles, or we could talk to Steve anytime.
But this has been addressed right now. I mean, the point I'm making is, all I wanna know is, I just said that we had a difficult time running meetings. And what we're being told is, one, it's the room, and two, we could have all
Y'all
been
should have
home,
stayed
and it
home.
would have worked great. And I honestly do not recall anybody telling me, maybe somebody on council remembers being told you should all go home and you can all be on a screen and see each other. I mean, this is the part though, what you said about the company. See, we're getting back into, well, who's at fault here? I didn't blame the administration for anything.
no.
But what you're getting up is saying, well, you guys knew better, but you decided to come in and do this.
In
And
no
and
way
I'm
whatsoever.
saying I totally disagree with that, and I think the record
I
will
said
show.
nothing
We'll go
of-
check the recording.
I said
We were
nothing of
never
the
told
case.
that.
I indicated what the room had been built for. In no way did I blame any member of council. And if council decided to come in here, if council wanted to have every other member somewhere else, it's our responsibility to make that work. And we did so repeatedly, which, with your help, and I did say that.
But it didn't
with-
work. I mean, the ultimate thing was, why are we like this? Because it didn't work. We were not able to do virtual meetings. It didn't work. I'm sorry, Charles. It didn't work. We didn't make this up. We didn't decide to come in because we prefer to sit here. It did not work. We had the multicolored people. They saw each other, but nobody else. It didn't work. I mean, I don't get into wiring. None of these other places are wired. I guess my point is, the guys are here. I just want them to help us fix this. You guys feel everything's great. I get that. You guys all did everything and you're fixing it as we go along and it's all fixed now. So if come December, we have to go virtual or January, none of us have to come in, Bob, and we can run the meetings, whoever's the president then can run an entire meeting of 9 people, plus take calls, because we have to have courtesy of the floor. We'll all be able to do that remotely without an issue.
Yes, everything can run remotely, yes.
Okay?
Mr. Myers, did you have any further questions or comments?
No.
Mr. Lott?
Not to keep dwelling on a point, but it was near impossible to have meetings, good meetings. I personally give the benefit of the doubt to the administration. We must not forget that during this time, they were dealing with unprecedented situations at Graysdale, at the prison, and at the courthouse, and in our community. I feel, and I think, and I can't speak for any other council people, but I feel like we were not given the priority we need to run this county. I accept that the administration was under a lot of stress, under a lot of places. I can understand why it'd be easy not to make us a priority. I think it was a mistake, but I can understand why it may have happened. All that being said, we need to be ready if we have to go again. And I will give the benefit of the doubt to this administration because they had such a situation on their hand. But now we have time. And I believe the administration, from what I understand about this resolution, I'm hearing some of the things are being fixed. And so, that's where we have to go. We cannot go through what we went through before. We need to test this stuff. We need to make sure we can have meetings as soon as possible, virtual. Hopefully, we'll never have to do it again. Hopefully, it'll be just a person calling in because they're on vacation or something. But we need to be ready. So that's my point. If it fails again, there is no benefit of the doubt. There is no excuse. We see it coming. We know fall's coming. We know we may need it. We better have it. Thank you.
Is Tara still on the line? Tara, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a couple of questions based on what was brought up, and then I have a couple of things. I have a list here of some of our specific council concerns. What I'm thinking of doing, if you'll indulge me, is if you would stay till the end of the meeting, and I would like to address it with both of you gentlemen while you're here, rather than make a public stay, because it's not just about Skype meetings. It's just a lot of little things that, again, I guess what I get upset hearing is, and I've never heard it from you or your staff, sir, so thank you for that it's us as the user, and that we as a staff or as users have problems. I work in another corporation. I have problems all the time. I just got plunked on a big machine, and there's all kinds of technology and layers of technology. Stupid stuff happens every day. Like I can't get on my phone because my password that I put in doesn't work, and I, didn't know. I get met with courtesy, I get a ticket, I get a thank you, and I get communication back. I think what we need, at least specific to county council, is just better communication. I think we could do that at the end of the meeting. But it definitely, to be able to run our function of government, we need to have these meetings be able to be recorded. Also, a couple of points. Have you made specific suggestions to the administration about other platforms that perhaps they were not interested in? Or you didn't ask because
Not to
it's
the
not your purview?
administration, not to the administration, just to the individual divisions.
Okay.
I did mention WebEx, Blue Jeans, more recently again, when people were starting to talk about Zoom again. So, which has been an ongoing conversation. Let's wait, and then all of a sudden an order came through for Zoom, and there was really nothing we could do at that point. So what we did is started to pilot that. So there are like I said, there are 16 accounts out there, primarily in human services, children, youth, and families, I believe it is. Early intervention, they're put those to use. So we are piloting those, getting feedback from them. But I believe the enterprise type solution is going to be the polyclarity solution, though.
Are you responsible as the company's agent here in the county for making the decisions about the prioritization of work?
It's in conjunction with the administration, yes.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of issues, and I'll just give you the categories, and if you wouldn't mind staying after, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
We have issues with phone system here. We have issues with the recordings on YouTube, maybe not syncing up and starting on time. We have issues with our website or our part of the county, our piece of the county website. We talked about Skype functionality. Exchange of computers for council members and staff that still haven't been addressed. So there's just, we have a lot of little punch list items that if we could sit down and we could talk
Yeah,
about those
absolutely. We
at
can
the
go
end of
through
the
it.
meeting. And especially because we do have some staff now that are much more computer savvy than we are. But yeah, we are all part-time employees and it's very difficult for us. And if we need to set aside time that we have to do a retreat or a specific training so that we're all up to speed with our devices, I don't see that as being an issue, that we need to make ourselves available to you to do that. Ron?
It shouldn't be that complicated.
No, but it
Like
should
an
be
Apple.
available, because if other departments are getting it, and then we have the right to get it too. Like I said, a simple phone call and a little time with somebody, but an example is just that communication back. I turned my computer in a couple weeks ago, something was wrong, it was given back, but nobody told me what was wrong. It's like, well, here it is, it's fixed. Did I do something wrong? Did I break it? Was it a glitch? Just a note, a Post-it would have said, don't do this.
Okay,
Don't
well,
press that button.
Yeah, and so that kind of thing, we should be recording in the ticketing system. So if that's not happening, then we'll get that addressed.
Right. Because again, in other companies, you get a copy of that ticket that says it happened, or
Sure.
this is what it was, and it was resolved.
We're kind of challenged, and I sort of mentioned it, mentioned it earlier, is that we're trying to overcome that challenge, is that ticket level communication when you have an issue, to make sure that we have that sort of circle of life there, to understand what it is that we're doing to address your issue, right? And I think with, if you guys approve the synergy solution, I think maybe think before it's here, about when it is here, to give us the opportunity to get you familiarized with it, to get you acclimated to it, so that you're not coming in for a meeting and seeing it for the first time. You know, maybe just a few minutes before the meeting or something like that, because we can certainly have people here to help, just to be on hand. We've got somebody downstairs right now monitoring the video of this meeting, so, you know, we make allowances for that kind of thing. So if you need it, we just need to know.
Well, we appreciate your time. Tom, do you have anything else to close?
Yeah, I have one more question, because I'm in IT, so I'm with you guys, I know what's going on. But I heard Bob say we're on version 2013 for Skype for Business?
Yes, that's correct.
Correct. What is, how can I say, what's progression for us to move up to newer versions?
We're actually looking at a couple of other options. Teams is one of the options we're kind of looking at now. Right now, it's 100% cloud-based. It's not an on-premise solution. And based on the Office 365 licensing for 2,000 people, it is not cost-effective at all.
Yeah. What version are we in Microsoft Office across the?
Office 2016. at the
Okay.
moment.
All right. So that is not in 2013 range. Okay. Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, Bob, can I ask you a technology question?
Sure.
We had a lady that called in from New Zealand, and we had her on the phone. as
Thank
we
you,
were
I
there.
forgot that.
And it was like, we could barely understand her, and it was going back and forth, because we have the phone, we have to put the mic by the phone.
I'm not understanding why you have to put the mic by the phone.
That's
was
what
the
we were
headset
told we
button
had
pushed?
to.
You could barely hear her before.
No, you could speak.
When they're connected, like if I hit the headphone button now, it was disconnecting.
It'll disconnect the call? Okay.
So you're saying I should have dialed in by hitting the headset?
Hit the headset button, that way you hear the audio from the phone, the dial tone over the speakers, and then dial in that way. Yep.
I guess the question is, because the thing was, well, we have our screens, is there a way we could have like had her on like a better speaker than just
Or
over
could
the
she
phone?
not have been live with
And the
us?
thing was, well, there's a time delay, but like my son works his wife live in Japan, which I don't have to tell you, the other side of the planet. And we get on with them on my iPhone or on Portal, and we talk back and forth real time. I mean, they're as clear as a bell, I can see them.
As far as why it wasn't done as a video meeting, I couldn't tell you.
So we could have done it as
You
a
could have
video
done it as a video meeting, yes.
And I think those are the things, and we're gonna probably work something out with you from the council perspective, because it sounds like you're doing a great job when it comes to the day-to-day operations with the executive branch of government. And there may be some miscommunications here, which is the fault of us in government, about our needs and what we need as a co-equal branch of government and what would be helpful to us. So I think what we have to do is, I agree, we have to have more direct communications with you.
I think setting
And
up,
I will accept that responsibility as well, at least for the time being.
yeah, I think setting up documentation or processes as to, this is where the meeting's going to be held, it's going to be a virtual meeting, what do we need to do to get it accomplished? And really lay it out in playbooks. I
Yeah.
think that's going to help
And
everyone.
we did work together when we were going through, what was it, April, May, remember you were in?
Yes.
We were trying to, and I mean, you were here, you saw some of the issues we were having, because we'd come in early and try and get it straightened out. So, I mean, I think it'll be good if that comes in and that helps and we can go forward. I'm about going forward. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
whatever disagreement we have with the administration over who's right, who's wrong, I don't want to get into that. That's politics. But I mean, I'm more concerned with the technology and doing what we have to do as our job, and so I'm okay with that. So, thank you.
And I guess my last question is, going forward, do you think you have everything you need, you know, given this proposal that you have in front of us, in terms of staff and everything else, to be ready if this hits again?
Yeah, I believe so.
I mean, I guess I'm making a foolish assumption that we will never have to go back to zero, because we already know what we had to do at zero, that we should be ready to go.
I don't think it's ever a foolish assumption, because when you do throw technology in the mix, things happen. You put people and technology into the mix, a lot of things happen, so.
Well, that's the
It's
whole
laying things
problem.
out as a defined process or a defined run book. I think that's gonna help to really streamline that.
Well, that's why I'm glad you gentlemen went to school for what you did, and I'll just stay in my own lane and let you help me every step
Thank
of
you.
the way. Yes, sir.
Lori, just two other things. One, thank you for getting us screens, and I don't have to do this anymore.
Yes, sir.
That made me a happy camper. And one other situation, if we get into a situation where we gotta do virtual meetings again, is it gonna be possible for us to have a printer at home for ourselves? Because I need to look at this. It's easier for me. I'm old school when it comes to that. Is there anything we can do to work that out in case if we hit a situation where we're not coming in, is that possible?
I mean, if it's in budgets, I don't want to give you used printers.
Okay.
That might be laying around.
Okay.
Hey, and end on a nice note.
Thank you so much for the.
You mentioned the screens.
Yes.
Charles was instrumental in that and pushing that to get it forward, so.
Yes, he
I wanna-
was.
I
Thank you,
wanna-
Charles. I appreciate that.
Despite the usual back and forth and banter you do, I want to end that on a good note. We have to thank Charles for pushing these things too, because I was moaning and he helped get us. So, thank you, Mr. Dertinger.
You don't know how nice that is.
That's a
It's-
wonderful thing.
My eyes have been very grateful. Thank you, John. Do you mind staying till the end of the meeting?
No,
If
not
we
at
can just
all.
review
Not at
some of those things? Thank you. I'd like to move on then. Give you guys a chance to sit. Discussion regarding 2019 financial statements. Somebody wake Steve up.
So you had wanted to review the financial statements, the last finance committee meeting, before we had a discussion. I did provide you additional documentation for the first quarter. I apologize that it is not in narrative form. The breakdown in the narrative takes a bit more time, and we are putting the budget together so we meet our deadline under the Home Rule Charter. So we weren't able to get those narratives completed. However, I wanted you to see the first quarter statements, although they are highly irrelevant at this point because we are in quarter two. But if you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them. Otherwise, they speak for themselves.
Aren't we in quarter three right now?
We are, but quarter three is not finished yet.
Yeah, right. That's the end of this month, correct?
Yeah.
I had a
Go
couple
ahead, John.
quick things. Where are we revenue-wise? I know we delayed people's payments and,
So we're in the process of calculating that now. We haven't really seen a severe drop-off in revenue. And I don't think the real property taxes do tend to get paid regardless of the economy, and that is largely what our income is based on for the general fund. So that being the case, I don't necessarily predict a large drop-off. We're still looking at some of that to see where we're at, but you have to remember, we get large checks like $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million because mortgage companies that hold a lot of the mortgages on our real estate, they will pay in one lump sum from all their escrow accounts. They send us a sheet, and then we actually take that one big check and apply it to everybody's taxes. So that's one of the things we monitor, and all those checks came in. They matched what we were looking for. And remember, mortgage companies will always pay the real estate property tax because they're the mortgage holders. And if, God forbid, we have a wave of foreclosures, they don't want to lose a sale in a sheriff's sale or a tax upset sale when they have the secured interest on the property, because then they would lose it, period. So.
right. How about a hotel tax and gaming? That's got to be down.
So we have been very, very, so the slot share and some of the shared revenue from Monroe, the online gambling had been, the online gambling had gone off well, so the Monroe County share did come in, and it came in, because people who couldn't go to the casino that had that itch would move to some sort of online platform. Wind Creek was not as up on that. At that point, they didn't have an online portal, and if you notice, there are signs at the outlets now, they're working on their sports book and their online portion. So that's coming at Wind Creek, and they better, because there's a distinct possibility that they might have to go greater social distance or not at all. And that being the case, so the revenue is down, but we're also not making a lot of plans with a lot of that money. And with the slots and the hotel tax, a lot of the events that we fund, those smaller grants that we give, we have actually, the events aren't happening, so there's no need to put the money out. The other issue is that, or the other good thing, I guess, is Discover Lehigh Valley and some of those joint ventures we have were supplemented with CARES Act money. They've also made some tough decisions about laying people off, subject to callbacks and things like that. So while it's been a little bit painful and the revenue isn't going to be there, when the economy recovers, we'll be ready to go, and we monitor that on a regular basis. But there is revenue coming in now because people are gambling and people are starting to have to travel a little bit. So it's going to be a while, and since it's tourist related, that's the last industry that's going to come back.
The other thing I wanted to just point out, I noticed that the union contracts that are listed in the financial reports, I think that they're not updated, so if you could take a look at that.
I will double check. I know there were a few that did not get updated because the arbitration came through. I will double check and make sure they are updated for your quarter 3.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Yes, sir.
With COVID and the lack of so many things, am I to assume that our small games license, which is may not be a lot of revenue, is down too because people aren't renewing?
So some people will renew. If they don't renew, but they had a small games of chance license, I'm not exactly 100% sure what the state law says, but my guess is they would easily get their small game of chance license again. So it's not going to be a big deal when they open them back up. It is not a lot of money at this point. But yes, people aren't really renewing those. But it's not something, a lot of folks are doing virtual raffles and stuff like that to kind of keep themselves afloat. And they do keep their small games of chance licenses up for that. But a lot of times we're dealing with people in the revenue division who call in and ask these questions, and we're trying to limit them having to come in here, especially when they're older folks. So we're really sensitive to that fact and trying to help them do things remotely.
So this thing that I run,
Yes.
need to get mine renewed, and because I'm the guy who's gonna have to do it.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so it's smart to go ahead and renew it anyway, correct?
Yes, you should go ahead and renew it. And because even if you do virtual stuff, you never can tell.
Yeah, I don't want to take a chance on not getting it, because we've had it for 70 years. Okay.
No, that's.
Go ahead.
Hey, Steve, if this COVID stuff, because I know you're juggling this with the rest of your normal budget, things you have to do, and then you have to work with COVID. I think we've covered this, but if they don't spend, if we have money that's unspent and you go into next year, because you already have your budget together, I'm sure, and you had to account for COVID, will that have to be something next year, like
So.
if money isn't spent, it's on the municipalities or the entities, correct?
Correct.
But do we have to account for that?
No, not necessarily, no.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to be looking at exactly like how they spend the money. And so the way the process is going to work, the federal government will come in and meet with the state. And remember, the state DCED through the CARES Act has kept a certain portion of the money. And when we talked about this previously, what ended up happening is we may get another infusion of cash.
Right.
Because the state DCED may not spend all their money, which kind of throws us into a loop because we have a purchasing cutoff in November, which, we have to actually receive the goods if purchase orders in and all that other stuff. And my staff and I are dealing with that right now, how we're basically gaming out scenarios. If we get this much money, how do we spend it, et cetera. But what's going to happen, the feds are going to come in and ask the states. And the state then is gonna have to say, well, this is how we spent the money, and it went to Northampton County, and this is Northampton County's records, and this is this county's records, and this is that county's records. And we don't know what exactly the federal government is going to want to see or look at. So we're justifying everything, we're making sure our journal entries are attached, we're giving as much documentation as we can to the state, because we feel that if we are less of a burden to them and they get all the information they need from us, that they won't come back again and say, oh, you know, we didn't get from this, or we've been, you know, Northampton County's been a problem child, go there. We want to be very accommodating and make sure we can justify everything. We answer everybody's questions, you know, within the business day from the state. Our DCED staff, Tina and Mark and that whole crew, and my fiscal staff, were constantly communicating with one another to make sure we have justification and documentation. It will also affect how you see the 2021 budget, because while you will see much higher projections and we've had a huge budget amendment, that you won't see that money in the 2021 budget because it doesn't exist there.
Okay, yeah, that was my question, Steve, like, because I know you have to juggle this COVID plus our regular revenue. That's all I wanted to ask Steve.
How are we doing with our tax collection for the county itself? Because we did offered deferral of payments, correct?
Yeah, when Mr. Kusick asked me about the revenue, I don't expect any downward projection. The only downward projection we're looking at is interest, because nobody's making any interest money right now. And the other thing is intergovernmental. We've been promised a certain amount of money from the state through and through, but remember, they're looking at billions of dollars in sales tax that isn't coming in. So that human service money that goes to supplement that we get the money back from, that's gonna be a challenge in the coming, you know, through the block grants and stuff like that. That's gonna be where the challenge is.
Okay.
And every time I hear, oh, we're gonna pay for this or that, I hold my breath a little bit. So I'm not so much worried about our revenue, although I worry about that. I'm more worried about the pass-through money that comes through from the federal government and the state governments. So, I mean, I believe the federal government and state government will meet their commitments to us. It's just a matter of what priorities they're gonna put on that money and then what decisions we're gonna have to make policy-wise at the ground level.
Any other questions? 19 or 20, because I think we ended up talking about this year more than last year. How's our bond rating?
Until we hit the bond market, I wouldn't know. I don't expect any changes. Money is still relatively cheap. Do I think we could borrow money at a good rate right now? Absolutely. And we would be the only game in town. And we have a good credit rating. But at this point, I wouldn't even know, because we haven't hit the market.
I can't think of anything else. The GPA funds, that was last year, right? There's no issues with that and that whole assumption of responsibility, because we were separate and then they brought the GPA into this system for accounting. Has that been okay?
The GPA is still completely separate.
Right, but
they're in with us for accounting. We didn't have any issues this year because we handled it all. The GPA's external auditors were wonderful to work with. And we actually had an exchange of information, which is not what we had previously.
Good.
So,
sounds
difference.
good to me. Any other points you want to make to us before we adjourn?
Not at all.
Stevie, if I may, just the retirement, you have to account for that, the one fund.
Yeah, so the retirement liability is, so you'll notice the net position of the county changed. And what that basically is the net position for the county is simply this. If you would liquidate everything and stop operations right now, what would the county's position be? We were in a positive net position, meaning there would be money left over. Now, because we have that liability of the OPEB, we would not be in a positive position because that liability is big. Now, I will tell you this. Most counties and the city of Philadelphia, Allegheny, they're not immune to this. Some of them have not stopped post-retirement benefits. We have as of 2010. that liability for them just keeps growing, and they put $0 aside into the future. We have a $48 million fund. Most other counties have 0. That being said, I think we're in a much, much better position, but it still is a net liability. Now, does it affect us in the bond market? To go back to Lori's question, I don't believe it really does, simply because we actually have funds there, and now we're just on an equal we're on a little bit better playing field because the other cities and other counties who don't have these OPEB funds that are managed by the pension board, they don't even have anything to offset some of that liability they have on the books. If that makes sense.
I think, no, it does. I think you guys have been doing a good job, like, working through this change and rolling it in. I mean, it all seems to be working out well. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Charles,
Thanks.
do you have a minute?
I got two.
You mind coming back with me to my little?